So he was the co-director of the Yale Institute for Network Science, and he wound up having to step down.
If this is
he is the co-director of the Yale Institute for Network Science. So he was a professor of social and natural science.
Was this the guy whose wife also got into trouble?
Yep, that's the guy.
Okay, so this episode literally changed a lot of my views on everything.
Yeah, it was. Well, it's a very important episode. And what was the name of the episode, Jamie?
Facing the crowd.
Facing the crowd.
It was,
and it was about women. This woman shouted him down, and you're supposed. This is our home. You're supposed to be fucking protecting us. About Halloween costumes, and the wife had made a letter that she had sent out, and the letter essentially said, people should be allowed to have. Like, we'll play some of this here.
I hear that.
I'm looking at the smirk in your face, and I'm disgusted.
Okay.
I am sick. And I'm sick watching them argue with you. After we've been standing outside literally for at least 5 to 6 hours. Between you and Holloway, between last night to now, we've been arguing with people who are not willing to be listened to for a long time. And all I see from you is arrogance and ego. I am sick looking at you. I am disgusted watching Lex argue with you. You were not listening. You were disgusting. I don't think you understand that. And before I was not angry, per se. I was disappointed maybe. I thought maybe there was room for an apology. You've clearly told us that you do not plan to offer an apology for your words. You left the meeting last night to go home and then tweet, "Do not interrupt me," to tweet from your Twitter and then the Silliman's Twitter. You showed no remorse. You tried to let your wife leave that conversation without having answered for herself. That is disgusting. That is sick. And now, I wasn't angry before. I was not angry before, but now I am actually angry, sir. I really, do not interrupt me. I was not angry, and now I want your job to be taken from you. I don't want you to have this job. I am disgusted knowing that you work at Yale University, where I will get my degree, where I will look back and think I have to argue with you.
All right,
Don't,
it's my turn now. It's my turn now.
Don't do it. Don't do it, sir. Do not do it. This is not the day. You do not want to play this game with me. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't want to play this game with me. Okay? Understand that. Look me in my face, first of all, and understand that you are such a disappointment to this university, to your students, to yourself, to the things that you claim to agree with. You want free dialogue? You want free speech? This is how it works. Someone speaks, you listen. You do not cut them off. You do not do these condescending gestures. You do not smirk. Yeah. You look them in the face and you wait. You wait until it is your turn.
I think
the snapping is amazing. It's just so fucking characteristic.
The most upsetting part of that, I think what upset me the most is she has my poetry cadence. It was like she was doing the same moves and the same delivery.
Well, she was just trying to be intelligent and say something and shut him up and silence him. But that's the most important thing, is that she didn't want a dialogue. But she didn't want a debate.
He also, from what I remember on the podcast, he didn't need to be out there.
He stayed out there for hours to talk to those people.
That's
He's
the
super
thing.
reasonable.
So when she was saying, like, you're wasting my time or whatever, like, he came out to try to kind of like have his wife's back and like calling him sexist.
He came out to have a dialogue
and like hear them out, but like he didn't fucking need to be there.
But
like,
what she was saying, I'm gonna have your job. This is where I'm gonna get my degree. And guess what, fucker?
I mean, I'll tell you this: as somebody who lost their job, and as someone who has gone after people on Twitter, those people that we tried to get fired or from a writing job or whatever, you don't think about them the next day. Like, the people who tried to get that guy fired on Twitter or whatever, like, they don't think about him anymore. Like, if he got fired...
Those are kids. I mean, you're looking at an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old.
But the Twitter...
And intoxicated by that moment as well, you know?
Yeah, but the Twitter mob behind them, it's like a lot of me's. It's a lot of adults, too, you know? And, like, if that dude got fired and his wife got fired, like, I mean, that's like somebody's life who's done a lot of really good progressive things. Even if he did fuck up legitimately, it's like...
And it's also the consequence of actually being able to be fired. That's a problem. Like, say if you were running the Jamie Kilstein show, you got your own podcast, someone can't fire you. Yeah. You know, and that's really important to be able to fully and completely express yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had done something horrible, the marketplace of free ideas should step in and say, we're not going to watch his show anymore. We're not going to listen to him anymore. And that would be normal and real. the problem with being a professor of a university is a twofold problem, right? There's tenure, and tenure makes professors arrogant. It makes professors realize that they can't leave, and then they suck at it, and they're terrible. I mean, it's really common. It's almost like winning the lottery.
Right.
Like they become lazy and weak, or they become the idea. And the ideal situation is they become completely dedicated to being a professor,
Badass and
they
just,
don't
yeah.
have to worry anymore about their job, and so now they completely dedicate themselves to being an educator.
Yeah.
That's what we would hope, that
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about being fired.
Yeah, and I really hope that people listening to this, because I wouldn't have listened to that podcast if I brought up that podcast in my old circle. I would have gotten in trouble. I went to listen to a lot of your shows, and I'm sure there are people who completely disagree with me ideologically who wouldn't, read whatever, the Intercept or Democracy Now! or something on the other side. And it's like, my life has gotten so much better and wider and vaster, and I think it's made me a more empathetic person. Because again, on the left, you just assume you're empathetic because
You're on the left.
yeah,
Even though you're trying to get people fired, even though you're going after their jobs,
And you're being kind of a cunt.
attacking them,
Yeah.
and you're insulting them,
Yeah.
and you're labeling them in the broadest strokes of racism and sexism, and you're calling them terrible.
and that's the problem.
Yeah,
where
you're,
it's
you're
like,
framing them.
and then that makes your larger ideals, which can be correct, they don't matter as more.
Yeah.
Because you're not acting like a human being. And then it's also like, do you actually even care about those groups you're defending, or do you just want to be on sort of the right side and get your like bonus points, which is like
That's a big part of it, right?
I would like to think I was both. Like when they turned, I wasn't suddenly just like fuck gay people, like
Right. But you did eat a steak right away.
Man, but it was a heterosexual cis cow.
Not
that I
really.
ate.
Most cows are
Right.
actually
Don't
neutered.
say it. Don't know.
Yeah, that's what a steer is.
Is it?
It's they cut their balls off.
Dude,